Hey guys, welcome back to more HOA Karen stories. Imagine working hard to buy a safe home for your kids, only to be targeted by a neighbor Karen who thinks single moms should not be allowed in the neighborhood. She tried to ban my kids from laughing outside and fabricated a lien against my property to ruin my life. Let's dive right into the HOA story. And the first one starts like this. So I am a 37-year-old single mom to two sons, age 8 and 10. After years of jobs with crappy pay, going back to school, and the entire time taking care of my kids, I was finally able to have us in a good place. I wanted to get a house so the kids could have the type of childhood I honestly wished that I could have had. You know, a yard to play in, a nice neighborhood instead of one with crime and worrying, and I found that house in a nice neighborhood. The house was small to some, but to us it might as well have been a mansion. Each of us having our own room instead of sharing a single one, at times a single bed. We were all extremely happy about the situation. The house was a little bit of a fixer-upper. I was fine to have it be a long-term project though. This neighborhood was within an HOA, but when I bought the house it was explained to me that I could opt in or out of joining. I did know if I joined then leaving would be a bit of a process, so I should think of it as if I'm in, that means I'm in. I wasn't interested though and didn't want to spend the extra money. If I changed my mind I could always join later. I'm eternally grateful that I chose to go that route. I didn't know that a woman on the board lived on the next block and seemed extremely unstable. I met her before when she seemed pleasant enough but was kind of pushing me to join the HOA. Nothing alone that was a total red flag, but then about a month after we moved in I had my kids coming through the door looking upset. I sent them outside to ride their bikes only about 10 minutes before they came back. I was worried one of them got hurt. They loved their bikes and the fact that they could ride up and down the block could keep them busy for hours. My son explained to me that there was a weird lady that started yelling at them and telling them that they were not allowed to ride their bike. I was not happy hearing this and walked outside to see if I could see anybody. This woman, aka Karen, was standing out there and looking at me. I walked over, mama bear mode already coming out to play. Me, did you tell my boys they couldn't ride their bikes? Karen, they cannot make all of that noise. It disrupts the people that actually follow the rules. Me, what noise? All I heard from the window was them laughing, just like all the other kids. Karen, well, those kids are in a stable household, one that respects the rules. Meanwhile, your home, she made a weird hand gesture, as if I should just know what she was talking about. The rules she was referring to were the HOA bylaws, and I tried to explain to her after she said that how I was not part of the HOA, that I opted out of, and she knew this since I told her before. Karen, you still need to follow the rules. The color of your door is not right and the mailbox needs to be another design. Me, because of course the sky would fall down if a single door was blue, right? Or God forbid, a mailbox not winning a beauty pageant. Yeah, I might have been a bit too sarcastic here, but she messed with my kids and I just refuse to deal with people after they do this. As for the comment about a stable household, I was not quite sure what she meant in that moment, but I'll get back to that in a little bit. Karen didn't leave me alone like I told her to, though. She continued to make complaints and even sent me letters telling me how I was violating HOA rules. It was all the same petty crap like my kids playing too loud or something being wrong with my house. Nothing was a legitimate complaint. It got to the point that I couldn't let my kids play outside alone because I was worried about Karen approaching them. 2 months after the bike incident, I got a letter from her that looked a little bit fancier than her other ones. I opened it and saw that she had sent me a $4,000 bill for HOA fines. On the next page was talking about how if I didn't pay and if I continued to defy the HOA rules, a lien was gonna be placed on my house. I was not giving her a penny, to make that clear. I cannot break a rule if it doesn't even apply to me. That's like if I got arrested here and the officer said I did something that was illegal in China. The logic is the exact same thing. Now, in that time frame though, I'd made friends with a few of my neighbors. They were all part of the HOA but didn't seem to have any issues like Karen did with my house or the kids. When I got the letter, I wanted to speak to one of them and see if they could maybe give me some insight. I was not expecting her to sigh and mumble how Karen was at it again. After a little prying, I was able to get a story from her. It turns out I was not the first person that Karen had gone after. A different single mom used to live in the neighborhood. She joined the HOA, but despite following the rules, Karen would find things to fine her over, and then when she couldn't afford the outrageous fines, Karen put a lien on her house. Now the dots were starting to connect a little bit. She was making judgments about me and seeing me in a negative light on the sole reason that I was a single mom. The stable household comment she made basically translated to a two-parent household. It is said that at this point in history, there's still a stigma against single parents, like, fine, I'll admit that I made some bad decisions in my life, but my kids are not one of them and I wouldn't change being a mom for a minute. What Karen didn't know was what I did for a living though. After going back to school and getting my degree, I was able to become a paralegal, not at some multi-million-dollar firm, but it gave me an edge that Karen didn't know I had. Access to both the knowledge of the law and lawyers that would be more than happy to help me destroy her. I didn't pay the fines and I got the letter in the mail claiming she had put a lien on my house, now asking me for both the $4,000 in fines and charges in order to get them to drop the lien. I knew that since I was not in the HOA, she had no right to put a lien on my house, and in fact I doubted that she actually filed for one correctly. I decided that it was finally time to get the legal system involved. First, getting Karen sent a cease and desist letter. The second thing was going through the process of finding out if she actually got a real lien on my house. A process that I just have to say is far longer and far more complicated than it should ever have to be. Karen just flat out ignored the cease and desist letter and instead continued to send me letters and even emails asking about the money and still threatening me with the lien. One email telling me I should not bother with a lawyer because the HOA had a good lawyer and could beat anything I could afford, according to Karen. We had harassment, extortion, disobeying a cease and desist, and so on. Basically, more than we needed to take her ass to court. We filed the motion for the lawsuit and just waited and bided our time until I could have my day in court. With a lawyer my firm helped hook me up with and a folder filled with my evidence, basically her letters and emails. The court date itself did not happen right away. Anyone who has dealt with the legal system knows it's a lot of waiting, rescheduling, and paperwork. In the meantime, something interesting happened. And by the way guys, before we know what happened, please don't forget to like the video and eventually subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss any of my daily videos. Thank you so much in advance. However, Karen suddenly went quiet. No more letters, no more emails, no more friendly reminders about money I supposedly owed. At first I thought maybe she had finally realized she was in the wrong and backed off. That thought lasted about a day. What actually happened was that the HOA board had been served too. Apparently Karen had been doing all of this in the HOA's name without actually telling them the full story, or really any story at all. She made it sound like I was some delinquent homeowner refusing to follow rules, not someone who had opted out of this crap entirely. Once the board saw the cease and desist and the lawsuit paperwork, things got very uncomfortable very fast. I found this out when I got a call from the HOA management company asking if I would be willing to discuss the matter informally. I told them all communication would be through my attorney. That alone felt incredible to say out loud. And eventually we ended up in court. Karen showed up looking very confident right up until the judge started asking some questions. Simple ones like how my property was part of the HOA, or where the signed agreement was, or why she thought she had the authority to file a lien on a house that was not governed by the association. She didn't have any answers. She kept talking in circles about community standards and what is best for the neighborhood. The judge cut her off more than once to remind her to stay on topic, and when my attorney presented the documents showing I had opted out, along with copies of the emails where Karen threatened me with foreclosure, she started to seem nervous. And so did her legal counsel. Karen's attorney asked for a recess. When we came back, the HOA's lawyer did most of the talking. They wanted to settle. The lien, which Karen had claimed was already filed, turned out to have been submitted incorrectly and ended up getting rejected. That didn't help her case. In fact, it made things worse because it showed she was threatening homeowners with legal action she didn't even understand. The settlement terms were straightforward. Karen was ordered to cease all contact with me and my children. The HOA issued a written statement confirming I was not and never had been part of the association. They also covered my legal fees. Karen was removed from the board effective immediately. I didn't get some massive payday, and honestly I didn't even want one. I mean, the little bit I got was nice, but what I wanted was just for it to stop. And it did. Since then, things have been quiet. My kids ride their bikes again, no one yells at them. Karen now avoids my block entirely, and when I do see her at the grocery store, she looks straight through me like I don't exist. And well, that's fine with me. My house is still small, still a work in progress, but it is ours, and every time I watch my boys playing outside, laughing like kids are supposed to, I'm reminded that standing up for yourself doesn't always mean being loud. Sometimes it just means refusing to let someone bully you into submission. And the next one is a fantastic petty revenge story that you don't want to miss. It starts like this. So I am a supervisor and I had a wretched employee. Or is it wretched? I always forget. Anyway, she caused so many interpersonal problems that we lost people because of her. There was an incident that she was involved in and she felt like someone had insulted her and she didn't want to cover this person's shifts anymore in the very near future. I then got my director involved because this person is very hard to deal with. We basically had to convince her to not burn this bridge because it was just gonna cause even more problems. My director at one point said, "I know you feel slighted." And this person stopped the conversation and asked her to repeat the word and said she didn't understand what she meant. The director kindly and patiently explained what she meant, and well, I tucked this bit of information away. I didn't think the word slight was that uncommon of a word. So it made me think, what other intelligent sounding words can I use to get under this person's skin? So I started to use words in my emails to her, to the group, anywhere I could think of that were above average reading level. High school level, nothing crazy. Sometimes I would even Google synonyms of words to elevate the email a little bit. One time, the wretched employee sent a department-wide email. It was a daily email that everyone gets with daily safety notes. Usually, someone else wrote the emails during the daily meeting, but that person was off that day. Anyway, she uses profanity in the email, just one word, nothing to anyone, just said, "Good job getting crap done." And I was like, really? Everyone can read this. So I email her and ask her to not use profanity in an email as it sets an irreverent tone and I wouldn't want there to be anything misconstrued that this is not a professional environment. So essentially, I was being very polite but firm. Her response, of course, was over the top, said I was singling her out, other people have done it, they hadn't, blah blah blah. Another colleague and I were talking on the phone that evening and that the wretched employee had called her and complained about my email. And especially complained about the word misconstrued. I think her words were, "Who even says that? I don't even know what that means." Cue my Grinch crap-eating grin. I told my colleague, this colleague is a friend and hates this wretched employee as much as me, but they used to be friends. I did that on purpose and had been doing it for a while. She laughed and thought it was amazing. I was like, thank you, and internally took a bow. And the next one is another petty revenge story, which is titled "Sister Didn't Think I Earned My Job." So this was a few years back, but I got a job with the same company my aunt was working at the time, just different departments. She retired later that year, but I'm still working at this company right now. Boss man was reluctant to hire me, a tiny woman, to work at a man's drug and alcohol rehab, but I proved that I was worth keeping. So basically, I've literally saved 3 lives at this job. Narcan, my guys. Learn it, live it, and love it. My oldest sister, who has always been a stuck-up, ungrateful idiot that nobody likes, started talking crap one fine day about how my aunt bought this job for me. Mind you, she was unemployed at the time and had been for like 2 years, and my aunt, while well-liked and established at this company, was not a high rank and had no say whatsoever in hiring. She literally just provided a reference. And she, you know, left. And I was not immediately fired. Well then, it just so happened that I got voted Employee of the Month, got a cheap printed certificate and a $20 Walmart card. I didn't really care about the award, but boy, leaving that piece of paper on the counter where that bitch could see it, tasty. Interestingly enough, she never said anything about my job being bought for me again, and nowadays she is once again unemployed while I've kept this job for 8 years. And yeah guys, as we always say, sometimes the best revenge is just being successful. And now let's move on to the next story. It starts like this. So let me start out with how I got the property that the HOA thought they had a claim to. It was a beach house just a few hundred feet from the water, located in a seaside town that is about 3 hours away from my current home. My grandparents owned it for a good half of their lives and would host their children and grandchildren in it for years. I had good memories of that house and the time I spent with my siblings and cousins. There were summers where everyone in our family tried to line our vacations up in order to spend their time together at the beach house. The adults would get up to whatever while all of the younger kids played in the sand and played in the tide pools. We would make sand castles and bask in the sun until it set. I loved those summers, and a part of me hoped that I'd be able to replicate them when I was old enough to bring my own children there. Of course, time passed and my grandfather and grandmother passed on. They passed away within a week of each other, so their funeral was a joint one. Their will was also something they had planned to initiate together, so it made things a bit easier for the family to say their last goodbyes at the same time. I was caught a bit off balance when their lawyer called me to attend the wills reading. My grandparents were not stingy with their inheritance and they passed along bonds, stocks and other large investments to their children and grandchildren. When it got to me, the lawyer explained that I was the owner of my grandparents' beach house. They had the deed in my name already, I just needed to provide my signature. I was so excited. The dreams I had of sharing the house with other members of my family were within reach, and when the deed was signed, I was ready to take the 3-hour trip down to the house to make sure it was maintained. My grandparents had a cleaning service come through every week to make sure the place was spotless, and I hired the group to continue their work. In the months between family gatherings I hosted there, I decided that it would be best to rent the place out as a getaway or summer vacation spot. Having that extra income became essential for upkeep of the house as well as providing for my own family. I know I explained a lot, but I wanted to make sure that you had all of the information before I went into detail about the HOA issues. I had been made aware of the HOA back when my grandparents still owned the place. They had apparently tried to get my grandparents to sell the beach house so that it could be a part of the HOA, but my grandparents wanted it to remain in the family. That did not stop someone from sending welcome packets in the mail, but they were ignored. Once I got ownership of the house, there was one person in particular that seemed very insistent that the place would be better if under the HOA. Well, of course, we're gonna call this woman Karen because she was one in the broadest sense of the term. To all the ladies that share the same name as Karen, I'm sorry. Karen sent welcome packets as well as several emails to me. I still to this day don't know how she got my email address, asking about purchasing the property. I shut it down though, and I told her to stop contacting me about it. For a while it worked, and for a few months I didn't think the HOA was gonna be that much of an issue. I wanna say about a year into my ownership of the house, 2 of my renters called me in a panic one morning claiming that someone had come up to their door and talked about them getting removed from the property. Apparently, Karen told them that the HOA owns the beach house, and because they were not properly keeping up with their dues, Karen was going to have the renters removed along with anything not nailed down. I did not waste any time grabbing the important paperwork for that property and driving over 3 hours to the beach house to help my renters. The entire time I was on edge. What the hell was the HOA trying to do? How could someone just lie and try to scare people into giving up an entire house? I drove to the beach house expecting the worst. I could already tell that there was something going on at the front of the house from the amount of cars and trucks parked there, but decided instead to take the backdoor entrance just to check up on my renters. They were grateful that I came and told me more about what had happened. Apparently, Karen had not only knocked on their door earlier, but had been passing notes and messages under the door about how they were supposed to vacate the property. I asked them to gather up everything and to wait in the house while I tried to talk to Karen. I consider myself a fairly calm person, but of course some things can rattle me enough that I can raise my voice. I've worked in education for over a decade, so I feel like I've become a master at masking my emotions so that I don't piss someone off. I kept my expression blank as I walked out the front door towards Karen. There was a moving truck in front of my beach house and she was talking with a group of people in matching shirts that I assumed were the moving crew she had hired. A few of them looked away from her and caught my eye as I approached. As I got closer, I could hear what she was saying. Karen, and everything should be cleared out in less than 3 hours, got it? I'm not paying extra to have you take your time on this. Me, excuse me? Karen, stopping in her tirade to turn towards me. What do you want? Can't you see I'm busy? Me, ma'am, I own this property and I think I should be asking you why you are here to begin with. Karen, the only owner of this property is the HOA. I will have to ask you to leave. Me again, ma'am, I think you're mistaken. This property is not part of an HOA. It's been in my family for decades, and I think I would have known if they decided to sell it off to an HOA or someone else. Karen, this property has been under HOA jurisdiction for 3 years. The board finally decided to act against the renters here to get paid what was due. Me again, I've had this property for a year, pulling out the deed, and before this my grandparents owned the property. I'm gonna ask you again to leave. Karen, and I'm gonna call the police. How dare you think I'm lying? And that piece of paper doesn't mean anything if the HOA has owned this property for years. I just shrugged as she took out her phone, but I was starting to get a bit angry. There wasn't any logic to her argument, and I hoped that the police would understand this. The movers stayed where they were, Karen yelling at them that they were not getting paid to sit around. Well, I asked them to stay just to have witnesses if something else happened. I went back into the house to let the renters know what was happening and to get all of the things that Karen had sent them so the police could see what she'd been doing. The officers arrived a couple minutes later. They heard her side first and I could already tell that Karen is laying it out like I've been harassing her this whole time. When they get to me, I show them the house paperwork and the things she had sent my renters. I told them that the HOA had no claim over the place, and if Karen was insisting I had no right to the property, I would just take her to court. The police believed me, especially with my evidence, and asked if I needed help getting her off the property. That in return set Karen off. She started to yell at the officers, claiming that she had not been lying. She started cursing me out, claiming I was a squatter and that the property was the HOA's. It felt like I was watching someone breaking down in a movie. She was so overdramatic. The officers did their best to de-escalate the situation, but she only got angrier. The movers packed up and headed out, getting a clear indication that Karen had hired them on false pretenses. Karen continued to accuse me of other strange crimes like owing her money for the privilege of being near the HOA. All in all though, the police ended up having to arrest her and take her to the station. They did ask if I wanted to press charges and I told them I did. I checked in with the renters to make sure that they were not too shaken up. They thanked me for actually coming down to help them and making sure they were alright. I decided to waive their fees for their time in the beach house and let them stay for an extra week. It was the least I could do. They should not have had to deal with someone like Karen during their vacation. I filed a suit against Karen along with a few other homeowners that were not a part of the HOA, and apparently my property was not the only one she had tried to claim belonged to the HOA. The renters had made sure to let the other property owners know that I was the one who finally called Karen's bluff and got her arrested. That gave them the confidence to press charges against her as well without feeling like they were gonna be bullied for it. I'm sure the suit was salt on the wound at that point, but I wanted Karen to know what she had done to me and the surrounding property owners that did not feel safe with the HOA so close. We won of course and got a pretty large settlement for the things she had done. I didn't give any thought to Karen until about a month ago. I did not want to give her the satisfaction of taking up part of my mind while I didn't have to deal with her again, but I was curious to learn if anything happened to her after the lawsuit. And well, apparently she had to sell the house she had in the HOA near my beach home in order to pay part of the settlement, and there was not a single trace of her left on the HOA's website. And the next one is another story from r/petty revenge. It is titled No Christmas for 5 years. So at the place I work at, you have to have been at the company for 5 years before receiving a Christmas hamper. The hamper is mainly the company's own product, so nothing too extravagant. I believe 5 years is too long though. I would probably feel differently if it was a bigger gift or something, like a monetary bonus, but so because of this, I refuse to wish higher management Merry Christmas or any Christmas wishes. I did this for 5 years. One of the operations managers wished me Happy Christmas last year, and I did not reply with the normal "you too." This was actually harder than I thought it would be, as I'm British and extremely polite. He commented something along the lines of, "Do I not get a Merry Christmas?" So I replied that he would have to be my boss for 5 years before I wish him a Happy Christmas. He told me that was a bit petty. I'm wondering if it's petty or if I'm just pointing out the ridiculousness. And yeah guys, thank you for watching. I will see you again tomorrow.